Welcome to Equipping the Corps. As the Marine Corps continues to modernize to meet force design goals, innovation is critical. Cue Science and Technology Reinvention Laboratory, or STRL. This designation for the Marine Corps Tactical System Support Activity enables them to operate more like a warfare center. On today's show, I have two guests, Mr. Gramp, the Marine Corps' Chief Engineer and Marine Corps Systems Command Deputy to the Commander, Systems Engineering and Acquisition Logistics, and Colonel Craig Clarkson, Commanding Officer for MCTSSA. Welcome to the show. I'm happy to have you both on. We had you, Colonel Clarkson, on last season, but can you give us a brief overview of MCTSSA?
But MCTSSA right now, I think, is a really important organization within the Marine Corps ecosystem, particularly as we're focused on a lot of force design efforts, and a lot of those surrounding stand-in forces and the importance of information in the future. And as the Marine Corps pivots to become the JTAC of the Joint Force, a lot of the systems that are involved in that are things that we work on here at MCTSSA. So there's a lot of experimentation happening right now. In fact, as we're recording this, we've got Project Convergence Capstone 4 happening out in the backyard here at MCTSSA with all of our joint and coalition partners. And we're doing a lot of work with the program offices we support to figure out how to bring in the latest and greatest technology, how to get that technology out to Marines faster, and how to optimize the systems that we have in the inventory. We achieve that mission is through the divisions that we have here. The first one I want to mention is Warfighter Support Division. They're the primary touch point with all the Fleet Marine Force, and their primary role is to function as a help desk of sorts, but it's a little bit more than a help desk in that we've got Marines, civilians, and contractors that work in that organization that are hubbed here at Camp Pendleton. And then we also have outlying stations in Okinawa, Bahrain, Germany, Camp Lejeune in the National Capital Region to be there to provide over-the-shoulder support to Marines when they need it in the field, and to be the technical experts on the systems that the Marine Corps provides to Marines in the C5I realm. You call any time of the day, 24/7, 365, somebody's there to answer the call. If that person on the phone can't solve the problem, they're going to move you over to one of the warfighting support officers who, is a technical expert in a specific bin of capabilities, and they troubleshoot. And if you can't solve the problem there, we'll actually replicate the architecture in our lab environment and figure out where things have broken down in the system so we can get you back up on target. One of the things that Warfighter Support Division is doing that's really important for the future is we've stood up a software development capability in our digital solutions branch. And so we have civilians and Marines and contractors working on developing software to solve warfighter problems that are time now. And they're doing a lot of work right now inside the Tactical Assault Kit ecosystem, which is an important capability for not just the Marine Corps, but the Joint Force. The next one is Test and Engineering Division. This organization does a lot of heavy lifting in support of the program offices and in support of experimentation. We've got experts that support the program offices with the specific capabilities that are being delivered, ensuring that all the testing and developmental testing happens correctly, and that any kind of bolt-on type of engineering work that's going on is done correctly. We've set up a number of lab environments that are unique to the Marine Corps with our CJAD C2 Battle Lab in our Naval Integration Labs. They're doing a lot of work to make sure that we are interoperable with joint and coalition forces. And the other capability I want to highlight is that we have a Cyber Blue team that works on securing all of our critical programs within the Marine Corps, and they have a tight relationship with Mar4 Cyber and other elements across the Marine Corps who are involved in cyberspace operations. And then we have Amphibious Vehicle Test Branch, which is famous for a lot of reasons, but really unique organization with tremendous capability. Their primary customer is PMAAA. They do all the testing, getting performance characteristics of vehicles that go on those surf, whether tracked or wheeled, and increasingly doing a lot of work with some of the unmanned systems. And then we've got Infrastructure and Information Support Division, which functions as the sixth for the command. And their primary role is to make sure all of our lab environments are up and running, and that we are well interconnected with all of our partners across the Joint Force that are involved in developmental testing and engineering. So we have a lot of partnerships here.
Yes.
Work with a lot of different people, support a lot of different organizations, not just program managers from Marine Corps Systems Command, PO Land Systems, PO Digital, PO, MLB, and others, but with some of the headquarters elements across the Marine Corps, and have a lot of touch points with our joint partners and their program offices as well. A lot of things converging here at MCTSSA right now, again, because of the work we're doing to support force design. But our priorities in the command are support the force design efforts, support of the program offices, and support to the warfighters.
Mr. Gramp, can you tell us a bit about your position here at Marine Corps Systems Command and for the Marine Corps?
Yeah, so I am the Chief Engineer for the Marine Corps and at Marine Corps Systems Command. That is my one hat. My second hat is as the Deputy to the Commander for Systems Engineering and Acquisition Logistics within Marine Corps Systems Command. If I was to try to summarize what those two roles do, again, I think they're very complementary. I am responsible for ensuring that our programs deliver capabilities that are safe, that are effective, and I do that through delivering training and knowledge to our technical workforce. So I take our engineers, our logisticians, our testers, our cyber workforce, and I ensure they've got the right skills and that they're in the right places in those programs. And then I make sure they have the right tools and processes to ensure that they're able to support programs in delivering capabilities that are effective, safe, suitable. So that's my primary job. I view myself as a supporting element to the program offices, and I carry that out through both the technical competencies that also fall under me, the engineering and logistics competencies, and making sure that we've got a highly skilled technical workforce that has the processes, tools, and capabilities to support our program offices.
Pretty important role within the command.
I think it's a very important role within the command. But as we'll talk about, I think it is awesome that I have an opportunity to sit here at MCTSSA and be a part of one of the vital aspects of that technical workforce, which is the C4I, the command and control and computers communication side of this, because that is, as I'll maybe talk about a little bit later, but I think that realm of software, of command and control, communications computers, that is an area that I think is critical for the future of our capabilities that we bring as the Marine Corps. So again, I think it's exciting to sit in this pocket of our engineering and technical workforce, and we'll talk more about that,
I think that's a great statement to make, because yesterday at FCO West during Mr. Dave's panel on Fight Smart, a big part of that discussion was the software, focusing on the software, not always the hardware piece when it comes to what we're giving out to Marines.
Yeah, I will just say, not to take General Glavy's words as my own, but I heard it in at least 3 of his panels. The words that resonated to me were little h, big S, yes. Little hardware, big software, and the realization that in many of the cases, hardware is the commodity that delivers, but the real capability is coming from rapidly developed and delivered software that's able to change at the pace of threat in the operating space. So
I'm a firm believer that he who builds and deploys software the fastest will win the next fight. We need to figure out how to move away from this idea of monolithic programs, i.e., software and hardware together as a thing, and separate that hardware from the software so that you can, you have your virtualized software that you can ride on any, hardware agnostic type platform to do the things that you need to do.
MCTSSA recently received an STRL designation. Can you explain what that means?
So let's spell it out.
Okay.
Science and Technology Reinvention Laboratory. That was a move by Congress several years ago in the National Defense Authorization Act to say we need to rethink the way that we do research and development, test and engineering, test and evaluation across the department. And so they created this designation, and it was enacted through that law. We'll talk about the ways that you can get designated, but the reason they did that was to say we need to modernize the way that we conduct research and development across the defense enterprise. What they did in that creation was to say there's a couple of key parts to that. We need to have a way to incentivize, to recruit and retain a highly technical workforce in this lab construct. And then we need to be able to use specific authorities to allow those labs to do their work faster, to take the goodness of innovation from industry and to bring that into the department faster, and then to have that organic knowledge, what I refer to as the technical conscience of the department, and have that resident as a result of these labs existing. So that's where the STRL came from. The designation applied to, there's 20 labs across the Department of Defense, the Navy, the Army, the Air Force. Most of them have been designated by act of Congress through the National Defense Authorization. But what that enables then is for labs that are acting in that capacity, again, to be able to modernize the way that we hire specific talent. We talked about the importance of software. That's a different skill set and workforce. And to go after that workforce, we need to have a different approach to hiring, a different approach to compensating, and to incentivizing that kind of workforce. And then once we have the workforce side of that under this STRL, you need ways to move faster. You need ways to be able to work around some of the bureaucratic layers that have evolved over time, and to enable innovation. And so there are certain methods and approaches that are approved for use within an STRL, a designated STRL, that allows them to act more innovatively, again, to not be stymied by some of the layers that have built up in the system. So again, for me, what that means in a nutshell is we can get the right people that we need. We can incentivize them to join our efforts. We build that competence within the Defense Department, within the Marine Corps in this specific case. And then we're able to act with speed and agility across a variety of things in contracting, in cybersecurity, and in just our hiring practices to be able to meet emerging needs more quickly.
A couple of authorities that come with the STRL pieces, like so Section 233 authorities, which we could talk to, I guess, in some detail, but essentially those are some contracting authorities that allow us to move faster than the normal, DoD 5000 type contracting activities. It gives us some opportunities to, circumvent some of the normal processes in terms of, internal approvals for things like IT purchase requests, getting to an ATO authority to operate faster. And those are all things we have to figure out how to implement because we're still it's been a learning journey so far. And then the other piece that Mr. Gramp talked about with hiring and incentivizing people, there's a different personnel system that comes with that. In many ways similar to what everybody at Systems Command is familiar with ACDEMO, but it's basically an STRL demonstration project that you have to go through a federal registered notice process to bring that to fruition. It's kind of a lengthy ordeal, and there's a lot of moving parts with that. So we're learning about that as we move forward. So we're stepping out, figuring out how to do all this so that we can bring that goodness together and become, I believe MCTSSA is already a high-performing organization, but we can be that much more high-performing. And when you look across the landscape of, the DoD, and you have organizations like Air Force Research Labs, they're an STRL. NAWIC PAC, NAWIC LANT, they are STRLs. All the warfare centers in the Department of Navy are STRLs. Okay. You have to be, in fact, you actually have to be an STRL for all intents and purposes to be a warfare center to perform those functions. So part of the push with this is that we want to bring some more of that capability internal to the Marine Corps, because I do think that we have a unique mission in many ways in the Marine Corps, and the MAGTF is unique. And what I see happen here at MCTSSA on a regular basis is because we are MAGTF and because we work with joint partners a lot. A lot of our systems are Army systems. We have to work with, be fully integrated with the Navy. We have to work with the Air Force. One of the reasons that the Joint Force wants to host Joint Staff J6 events here, why we do Project Convergence events here, is because, there's an intersection across all the big services within the Marine Corps. And so our value proposition as, the Marine Corps' STRL is we can help the larger research and development enterprise across the DoD to make sure that everything's well integrated and we fight better as a joint force.
You mentioned how this is going to change the way that we recruit workforce and hire. The whole pay structure will change, similar to ACDEMO, but does this impact the current workforce at all?
There's a lot of unknowns because we still haven't implemented a new personnel system. The idea is that do no harm,
Yes.
right? That you have, there should be no adverse impacts to anybody in our current workforce. There should just be more opportunities for good things in the future. And in terms of bringing in the right as people cycle out and retire, and we have vacant billets, and we want to bring in somebody with a certain technical talent. Ideally, our future personnel system will allow us to do that in a way that's more effective and more geared towards the engineering workforce than the larger ACDEMO system is at Marine Corps Systems Command.
The Federal Register notice process that you talked about, the FRN process earlier, that's a lengthy process that allows for comment both from the public, but also it's an opportunity to have conversations with the workforce so they understand any impacts as they're coming. But it's not by intent, it's not a speed activity. Okay. It's intended to kind of be able to communicate, collect feedback, and incorporate that in. That being said, I believe there are a tremendous number of positive opportunities that creates for the workforce. One of the ones in particular, within the STRL law itself, it creates a Senior Science and Technology Manager, an SSTM position, which is a higher than GS 15 level technical position. So it gives career path for our engineers, scientists, and our technical workforce, logisticians, testers, cyber workforce. It creates a technical track within the Marine Corps, the Marine Corps Systems Command, for those folks to grow up into more senior roles that may not have an interest in senior executive service, may not be program managers, but they really want to be experts in their craft. So that's, I think, a huge thing that is an opportunity that's created there. And then because you have a targeted personnel demonstration project, we can focus the incentives within there, bonuses and performance awards, retention, recruitment awards, differential pay for areas that are critical to our future from a Marine Corps perspective. So I do think there are a number of positive potentials that are coming, but again, there's a deliberate process to make sure that we're communicating with the public, with the department, with the Marine Corps, that we're going through to make sure that that's all accounted for. But for me, I see that as huge positive. We have a chance to really set aside a personnel system that incentivizes our current workforce and recruits the workforce that we need to continue to grow with.
Can you tell us a bit about the process for this designation?
So there's a couple ways to do it. Okay. Mr. Gramp alluded to that before. Like, one is, it's driven by Congress, and we didn't go that route. The other one is to talk to OUSD R&E and make the case that you are doing that type of work that aligns with what STRLs do. And then DAS and RDT&E gets a say on Section 233 authorities, but it's a matter of making your case and going through a series of briefs and talking to the right people. And so I think that the journey really started on the tail end of last year with Project Convergence 22, which we were hosting out here, and we had a number of distinguished visitors from uniform and civilian from across the Joint Force, and again, a number of coalition partners, and then some senior leaders from DAS and in fact, ASN RDA, Mr. Stephanie at the time. We went around, we did the tours on the labs, and we talked about the kind of work we were doing, and it was remarkable the number of people who were saying, like, holy smokes, I had no idea you guys did all these things. But there's like, we've made a move from what kind of our traditional roles and responsibilities were in the past, looking at some of the things that needed to be done in support of force design, and as you survey the landscape and you look around, like, who else can do this, you realize, like, kind of not many other people. So maybe we ought to get after it and see if we can step up and do some things differently, and partner with not just the program offices, but the Marine Corps Warfighting Lab, to try to shorten the cycle to an extent from, experimentation to requirement development to handoff to a program office later. And if we can short circuit that so that we're as we're servicing the program managers with our regular kind of support, we're also taking lessons learned from the experimentation and feeding up the tighten up the feedback loop so that they're getting that information. They can start making pivots towards the future of where they think they need to go. And so all these senior leaders saw that going on, and there were a number of recommendations for people like, hey, you guys are really doing kind of STRL-like work. You should probably start, maybe take a look if that's a right fit for you.
Just a word more. We don't need to talk more about the NDAA process for how that is. Again, they write it into the NDAA for some of the labs. That is one pathway, and that's how many of the labs that exist as STRLs, they were actually written in, added to the National Defense Authorization Acts each year over the last several years. The path that we pursued, as the CO described, was to request of OSD-R&E that designation. And it is structured. There are a couple of key that are worth noting criteria you have to meet to be designated. One of them is that you meet the definition of a lab and demonstrate what it is. So as the CO alluded to, a number of folks have come out here, seen these things, and they see the lab work that goes on here. They see the test, the engineering, the work that is being done by this technical workforce. And they say, yeah, that was the conclusion that folks have reached just by seeing the lab. So that was part of the case, was to say, we meet that definition of a lab here at MCTSSA. Another one that was key was to have a primarily science and engineering workforce. So they kind of come through and look, and also here at MCTSSA, that was part of breaking down all of the different specialties, job specialties that we have within the workforce here to say, yeah, what we have is principally science and engineering workforce here. And frankly, it's one of the largest concentrations of that deeply technical science and engineering workforce, if not the largest within the Marine Corps. So there was a process of it's a simple sort of large set of criteria. You also had to demonstrate doing that science and technology research and development work. But the ones that really stood out to me was that meeting the definition of the lab and having a science and engineering workforce. And really then it was a matter of working with OSD-R&E, a team that was fantastic in supporting us as we kind of went through the process of documenting this. And it really was just a matter of documenting the work that we do, the facilities that are available, the workforce that we have, making that case and that request to OSD-R&E. And along the way, getting fantastic partnership and support from DAS and RDT&E. Dr. Seidel was tremendously helpful in shaping our request as we made it, providing some feedback from his extensive experience working with the Naval Research and Development Establishment. And again, the partnership and the teaming with OSD-R&E was fantastic. I'd also be remiss if I didn't say thank you to Cale Macias, the tech director up at NAVFACS XWIC, the Expeditionary Warfare Center. They are one of the most recent designees as of 2018 of the STRL. Okay. And because they had just gone through this process, now they went the congressional path, they were congressionally designated. But talking with Cale, he was a fantastic mentor in sharing their experience, their process, how they went through documenting those same kinds of things I talked about. So lots of help along the way from a lot of folks around, but it really boiled down to being able to make that case that what the work is that happens here at MCTSSA, it is lab work. It is work that supports, in our case, the Naval Research and Development Establishment. And we have the technical workforce here that is tremendously capable of contributing to that NR&DE across the Department of Defense, but especially for the Marine Corps.
Frequently, the focus is really on the civilian workforce, yes. But I talked a lot about the fact that, we're half Marine, half civilian, which is unique, right? A lot of the other STRLs out there are primarily civilian. But the Marines that we have at MCTSSA are super technical, and from various MOSs, whether it be, network, from the comm community networks, guys from the comm community, or, radar operators, maintainers, and, a lot of the technical contributions we make to the Marine Corps is via those Marines. And again, another value proposition of the organization is that You know, any organization at all that's delivering a capability to somebody needs to understand what the end user actually needs to get their job done. And it's a very unique, you know, I guess, relationship we have with the operating forces, in particular, you know, 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, and that we're co-located with them. And so these Marines that work in the labs have touch points with, you know, their peers that are actually in the operating forces. And frequently we have a lot of contributions from Marines who don't even work here and just are in the labs with us, helping us understand their problem set, operating systems in the way they would in a real environment. This is a very different, you know, test and evaluation, integration type environment than if you are simply going to a lab that has, very smart people, very smart engineers, but they don't understand the use case in the way that the Marines do. Yeah. So, you know, the uniformed Marines here is just like a really powerful part of our organization.
You need the Marines' input, who's actually using the equipment. We currently rely on other warfare centers I don't know if we call it contracting out, but we work with them on some of our systems, our equipment. Will that change now that we have an STRL designation? Will we do more work within the Marine Corps vice going out to the Navy?
That does not change our business model.
Okay.
We are still a mission-funded organization, a command that falls underneath Marine Corps Systems Command and supports, as the Colonel laid out earlier, the way that we support program offices. That is still the primary mission and functions that are in there. Whereas the other Navy Working Capital Fund organizations, warfare centers, have that Working Capital Fund, Navy Working Capital Fund business model. So that has not changed with this designation. What I actually look at is that we are now a part of that NR&DE that I mentioned earlier, that Naval Research and Development Establishment. That is made up by the other naval warfare centers. We now sit at the table with that group, and we bring a unique understanding and experience and expertise from the Marine Corps side. So I think what I see going forward is increased partnership and peering opportunities with those warfare centers. We'll continue to, I believe our program offices and we directly will continue to actually bring those Navy Working Capital Fund organizations to support Marine Corps needs. What I see that this brings is that we will increase our capacity within the Marine Corps to own our technical baseline, to translate the work that those other warfare centers do into institutional level learning and knowledge for the Marine Corps. So what I see it as is increased partnership with those warfare centers, and then increased institutional level knowledge within the Marine Corps of our unique Marine Corps integration challenges, needs, technical capabilities.
You know, similarly, you know, I look at it, there is plenty of work to go around, and we can't do all of it here.
More
so
than enough.
Yeah. So, you know, the partnership with, you know, other warfare centers within, you know, the Department of the Navy or otherwise, you know, we're going to have to spread load that work. But I think, you know, we've been doing great work in the past. We want to up our game. We want to be the first stop shop for program managers to solve difficult technical problems. So of course we'll outsource things that we can't do. But as a former PM myself, you know, frequently when it was a difficult technical problem, my first answer was go to one of the NIWICs because that's where I can get it. We want to make sure that the people we support understand fully that we have some of the most technical, expert people ever on some of our systems. Again, because of the workforce that we have, the Marines who actually are in uniform and are very familiar with the systems. The civilian workforce that we have, many of them prior military, whether Marine or otherwise, who came up working on that kind of system, and now they're a professional civilian engineer working on that system. I mean, like incredible technical depth. We just don't have yet like a lot of capacity. So the idea with the STRL is that it gives us some more ability to do additional things and you know, execute money faster, and you know, might be a better, you know, in some cases a better choice for program managers to come here first and invest in the work going here so that we can scale that technical expertise.
I think that you brought up a key point of the scaling challenge, which will be an interesting one. And I think that right now this STRL designation does bring an opportunity for scaling on the industry side. We can bring in that contract support, which gives us a lot of surge and early quick, which I think is exciting. I just continue to look forward because that back to where I started, where what I am most interested in is making sure that we have got the most qualified, competent technical workforce for the Marine Corps, focused on Marine Corps problems within the context of the Department of Navy and the broader Department of Defense. But I want to bring our absolute top game for government, science and engineering, and logistics support in support of our program offices. So my long game here is that while we can surge and we can meet some immediate needs, I think it's exactly what you laid out is I want Marine Corps Systems Command enabled by this technical workforce, certainly within the STRL that's established here now, to be absolutely top of mind within our program offices, to be the place that has the expertise to help us own our technical baseline and to lead Marine Corps development, engineering, test and evaluation work. So,
what are the key objectives of STRL and how does it differ from other research laboratories within the DoD?
Program managers are still going to be doing acquisition the way they do acquisition. They're going to acquire gear using the same, contracting process they use, the same, just generally the same work that they do. What I think is going to be different and what the change will be, this ecosystem that I described to some extent earlier on, we are doing a lot of work trying to connect the program managers better with the end user through some of the experimentation. I think this is a good time to talk about the MOA we have with McWill. So like back in a little over a year ago, General Walsh signed a memorandum of agreement with General Ellison at the Marine Corps Warfighting Lab. The Warfighting Lab recognized MCTSSA's excellence in a number of the areas that I've described and recognized that we have really solid touch points with the operating forces and that there were a lot of things going on here that people didn't know or that we maybe failed to advertise appropriately from MCTSSA. There was an opportunity to try to take some of the bespoke experimentation that happened across the fleet and pull that all into one place. So essentially, the MOA says that MCTSSA is going to, in partnership with McWill, serve as the C5 ISRT experimentation hub for the Marine Corps, okay. Right? And so because we are part of the acquisition enterprise and the experimentation is happening here in many cases, we're able to speed up that feedback cycle to the program managers. So ideally, it's letting PMs know, like, hey, you might have this requirement from CDD, which is valid in all the things you got to do. But because it was written in 2015, 2008, whatever, there are some changes that are real that we need to start addressing. So, this is the demand signal we're getting from the FMF operators. This is what we've learned in experimentation with our partners from the MEFs and McWill and otherwise. And here's what we've learned from that. Let's bring in the CIO that you're working with at CDD and start talking about that stuff. And so, like, as you're making your plans for what you're going to do in your program in the years ahead, you ought to start thinking about these things. So ideally, what's different is that program managers have better information to plan how they're going to deliver their program in the future.
The acquisition system is an engine, and it's an engine with a lot of opportunities for friction in that system. Friction between the requirements owner, friction between the funds supplier, friction between the technical community and the solution. So lots of these friction points make acquisition slower with the handoffs between those different organizations. I view what MCTSSA offers here and what, frankly, this STRL designation also brings is a lubricant to a system filled with friction. That lubricant is in the form of, as the CEO just said, we bring better information to program managers to support technical decisions. We bring better understanding of the requirement through experimentation. We're able to take those capabilities, potential science and technology, but also other mature prototypes and things, bring that into an operational environment and help us tease out what the requirements are. So we provide information to CDD, CD&I, and the requirements side of this. And then we inform smart economic decision-making through, again, proving capabilities through that experimentation. So I look at what MCTSSA brings and this STRL further enables that will change the acquisition system is it is reducing the friction and the handoffs. It's bringing a highly competent technical workforce that understands it can be a bridge between the fleet that we sit among here, the headquarters Marine Corps owners of requirements, and the program offices that have to buy and scale these capabilities. So that's how I look at it as the potential changer is really, again, it's a hub that brings together the right expertise, the right representation. I think it'll be supportive. You may talk in future podcasts about the fusion framework that brings those stakeholder organizations together, and how I see MCTSSA really bringing the technical expertise that supports those other organizations, again, in reducing friction and allowing for capabilities to flow faster from need and potential into actual capability to the Marine Corps. So MCTSSA to this point has been a support organization. You respond to program office need. By your own ingenuity and fleet proximity, you've started to poke out into other areas where you see the fleet needing to go. STRL now says that's part of your core mission is to reach out beyond just direct support to program offices. It actually carves out funding and a program that says you should invest internally. It's our version of IRAD. It sets up a funding stream, a methodology for soliciting those kinds of needs, and really helping us help program offices look beyond themselves. So McWill owns the science and technology, is the executive agent for that science and technology for the Marine Corps. This lab and this designation now gives McWill and gives the Marine Corps that arm that says, look forward. We can look forward and invest these internal funds, these internal nice dollars, to developing capabilities for the future fleet, not just responding to current need.
Can you provide an example of a breakthrough or technological advancement that originated from a research conducted from STRL?
The ability to identify prototypical capabilities and help bring them faster to the fleet, back to that fusion framework. And another really key one in my mind is workforce development. I can invest those additional funds in building the workforce. I myself was the beneficiary of being on a tour that was part of PAC Fleet on their staff that was paid for by some of these internal investment funds. So it didn't cost the fleet anything at the time with the Navy, but it gave me an opportunity to have tremendous insight into fleet needs and challenges, and then how to apply technology to those challenges. And that was enabled by a workforce development program inside of one of these STRLs, one of these warfare centers. There's also a last piece, the fourth category there for revitalization, recapitalization, that lets us invest in our facilities. The labs that were mentioned earlier, we have humble but powerful capabilities here. But in a world that is evolving rapidly with technology, being able to upgrade and introduce new software, new network capabilities, new communications capabilities, we can invest in that through this program. And I think, again, that emphasis of the STRL designation that says we need to build capability for the Department of Defense, in our case for the Marine Corps, and we're going to incentivize that by allowing you to invest, encouraging you to invest, developing a program for you to invest in building that capability. Our business model is one we got to figure out on that, because we're mission funded. So how do we actually incorporate that? But I'm just excited that now there is direct focus on extending our capabilities, thinking about the fleet of tomorrow. Force design, as the Commandant has said, is more than just 2030. It's a continuing campaign of learning. And MCTSSA, Marine Corps Systems Command, and this STRL that we've been designated is a key part of that campaign of learning. And again, we can invest in that work here today. So,
how does the STRL address the evolving needs and challenges faced by the Marine Corps?
It's important for people to understand that, like, what we're doing here, what we're trying to do, and where we see the future going, like, is not in conflict, or we're not shooting on McWill's target, right? We are an enabler, a supporting organization to reinforce what they do as the lead organization on that front. What I've seen throughout this, all of the forest design efforts to work together as a collective to move things faster. And we're doing things that might feel weird to people because it's outside normal roles and responsibilities, but it's like absolutely what we need to do in the future. And what I see in particular with the current workforce that we have across the Marine Corps, not just civilian but uniform, frequently with the rate of technological change, the people that have the best ideas are actually the captains and majors, or the NH2s, or right, because they are digital natives, not digital immigrants, like so many of us, and they need to be able to move out, have Durloth with whoever they need to talk to from other organizations, and promulgate the best ideas and best methods to get after whatever the problem set is. And I see that our many touch points here at MCTSSA, and in particular as the STRL of the future, is going to enable that kind of collaboration that much better. It was kind of breathtaking, the number of academic institutions that reached out to me after it was announced that we were, designated as an STRL. I got Carnegie Mellon University, MIT Lincoln Labs, you name it, and Johns Hopkins. They all want to work with us. To some degree, we've been working with them in the past, but senior leaders now want to get involved in that because they see the goodness in that. And I see that as we haven't done anything with that yet because we're still consumed with establishing the chief of contracting office here and figuring out how to do the FRN and all kind of stumbling along as we figure this process out. But I'm excited for what that will bring in more people from academia in here to work with our team, getting more PhD level work on artificial intelligence and things that we need for the future. It's super powerful. What I hope for is as people look to invest with us, they realize that they're not taking a haircut on their funding to buy a lab so that we can have lavish things. They're going to get the biggest bang for their buck because we're going to be focused on capabilities and what we can get out to the Marine Corps. Our culture is that way here, so.
Can you just give us a brief overview of your background, where you're from, and how you ended up working with the Marine Corps?
Sure. So my education is in computer science. So my bachelor's degree is computer science. So I was a software developer for my early career. Somewhat has certainly led to why I am so passionate about believing that everything defined the big S, little h. It is transforming everything about our world today through artificial intelligence and others. But so that's my education and my early work. I have actually been in a number of different organizations. I will also say I spent a lot of time with the operational side of the Department of Defense, not just this back office side that we do in acquisition. I was at Indo-PACOM at the time, Commander of Pacific Fleet staff for several years, for 10 years earlier on in my career, which really gave me a passion and a perspective for what our capabilities have to do to support warfighting. Engineering, acquisition, we are not the end. We are the means. And it really, that time spent on staff and with a lot of great mentors and leaders that I knew out there at the time, really gave me a perspective for the importance of the operators' concerns, needs, and capability they're getting. So marry those two things together, my technical background, my computer science degree, my software programming and development, a lot of time with the operational focus has sort of put me geared toward how do I write code that delivers warfighting capability. I then applied that with the Defense Information Systems Agency. I was with DISA for a time, working on big A acquisition, software-intensive systems, global command and control system, joint, big program, big part of my career there. And then brought some of that knowledge, experience sort of into the big A acquisition world, back into the Department of Navy with NAVWAR, and at the time it was the Space War Systems Center, SSC Pacific. So that kind of brought me back to a Navy feel for the application of some of these capabilities, and that gave me the opportunity to see how Navy labs work to support fleet needs. So couple all those things together, and most recently was then within when I was appointed to the Senior Executive Service with NAVWAR and in their Office of the Chief Engineer as an Assistant Chief Engineer. That sort of tied it all together to how do you bring my technical focus, my operational focus, seeing that across the joint community, and now, when a year and a half ago coming over to the Marine Corps, it says, how do I bring all that together, that technical focus, that operational need, and apply that to Marine Corps problems? So you may have picked it up in some of the discussion and the passion, but that's what sort of drives my technology focus and my operational focus.
Where are you from originally?
Born in Florida,
Okay.
Fort Lauderdale-ish, Florida, and raised for the most part on the East Coast, New Jersey, the East Coast of the U.S. But I've spent 12 years in Hawaii, 5 years in Maryland, and I'm working on 7 years in Southern California. So I've been around a little bit.
I'm sensing you like the beach more than the snow.
The warmth more than the beach.
The warmth.
Cold is hard on my system.
Same. I sometimes wonder why I'm still in Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
What about you from Clarkson?
Okay, so born and raised in Massachusetts. Went to college in Worcester, Mass. At College of the Holy Cross. Joined the Marine Corps probably for a lot of the same reasons most people do. Want to make a difference in some way. I was a combat engineer for 20 years. Okay. When I was at the basic school, I was on the demo range blowing things up, and I was like, hell yeah, this is what I want to do forever. And I did combat engineer things. All the led at all the levels, platoon commander up through squadron command here at Camp Pendleton. Actually, did a joint tour somewhere in there, doing counter drug stuff down in Miami, which was pretty cool. And then after command of the Marine Wing Support Squadron out here, the mighty Diamondbacks, I went to the Eisenhower School, and while there, I attended the senior acquisition course because I'd done a stint at Syscom as a captain doing counter IED things, and I was interested in acquisition. I of course it was a little bit different then because it was OIF time frame and urgent UNS things, so it was like really easy to buy stuff, which made it cool, and then you got things right away. But money and easy to buy. But it was really awesome and fulfilling to be delivering capability to Marines that they needed desperately at the time they needed it. And so I kind of I was interested in being a part of that. Then at the Eisenhower School, my industry study was C4ISR, and I learned an awful lot about the importance of data. And given the opportunity or the chance to either be stay on the traditional path and go be a logistics officer, I guess, of the future, or be involved in things, data, or delivering capability to Marines, I opted to apply for the MOS, and very glad I did. So my first job back at Systems Command, I had the opportunity to stand up a program office at Marforce Cyber and direct support of Marforce Cyber, delivering essentially full spectrum cyberspace capabilities. And you want to talk about a steep learning curve for a dude who was a combat engineer and was familiar with essentially like Microsoft Office products at that point. But I was surrounded by a lot of really smart people, like wicked smart people there. And I spent a lot of time with, again, the captains and the majors that I mentioned before, a lot of time around a whiteboard, understanding how the technologies work, and partnered with them to start delivering capability. And it was super fulfilling. And so then, when the opportunity came to be here at MCTSSA, I wanted to jump on it because, again, very, very technical work here, and selfishly an opportunity to continue to learn all the time and be surrounded by wicked smart people. And I think I've absorbed some of that. I'm not smarter as a person, but I've learned a thing or two. And I, being in this space right now is, for all the things we're doing with experimentation and working on C5I systems that are so critically important to the Marine Corps' kind of future mission in supporting the Joint Force. Like I am supremely lucky to be here. So it's been a great journey so far.
Okay, now we're going to do the lightning round.
Let's do it.
Favorite TV show, book, movie, or podcast?
I love the Lex Friedman podcast.
Favorite ice cream?
Chocolate.
Are you a
Simple.
morning person or a night owl?
Neither, though after 8 o'clock, I don't exist. I have about 30 minutes somewhere at 10:30 in the morning that I'm super awesome. Other than that, it's rough.
If you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Hawaii.
Okay, your turn, Colonel Clarkson. Favorite TV show, book, movie, or podcast?
There's one book called The Spider and the Starfish, and it's about the power of leaderless organizations. And the idea is that, a lot of organizations operate like a spider, in that it's very top-down driven. And if you cut the head off, like the organization ceases to function. Whereas the starfish, if you cut off a leg, another one grows back. And the book's really written about, I think it was like 2006 or 2008, and we're talking about essentially getting after terrorist organizations and the way they operate. But I think that there's, the starfish model, it's very intent-driven, very little specifics about how to do the work. It actually really mirrors like things we talk about in MCDP1. People are empowered to do what they think they need to do. They don't have to ask permission. They move out, and all that we ask in return is like, just keep us posted on where you're running to, so we can provide a little bit of vector to your thrust if you're getting off course. But that kind of model is really powerful. You can have outsized impact with a very small organization.
Favorite ice cream?
I like vanilla.
Morning person or night owl?
Yeah, I guess it depends on the day and what's going on.
If you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go?
I've never been to India. I'd like to go there.
Thank you both for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Morgan. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about, what we're trying to do here at MCTSSA.
It's an exciting time to be a part of all of this, and I'm glad I had a chance to talk about some of it today.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Equipping the Core. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcasting platform or on social media. We'd love to hear from you.